It's to get on the list to get more info about stuff like this.
Amber, how are you? How's your little guy? Are you working?
Yes, just part-time.
My little guy is coming tomorrow for a week. Would you be free to come up?
Let's see. Well, I work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays. Mondays and Fridays are off.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let you know. I have to see how tired they've come from Australia. They're tired.
That's jet lag on steroids.
And then we'll see what
Yeah.
Hi.
ماشي عشان الأكل.
Liz. Amber, how's your mom? How's your mom?
Good. Yeah.
Do you want to see some fitness? My great niece is 2 years old. That's our little Mercedes. Oops. Now there she is. That's Mercedes. My great niece.
Let's see. Aw, very cute. What you doing?
Oh, she's licking the frosting off of a little decoration that was on her birthday cake. And she ate a haul that day. Well, great aunt is allowed to brag, right?
Finally, Joe moved in. Joe, that she's lived with us for the last year, and so she moved out. So we were pleased. We did a lot of. Oh no, she just lived with me, but she had to back up, and I had to be in and out all the time. She's moving to Iowa City, and she stayed in our house last summer, and she expected to move at the end of the summer, but then the place she wants to move into. So it's finally a year later. She does and she doesn't. Very
Hello? Hello, everyone, and thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this. We're really delighted to see this nice turnout today, and we really look forward to an informative and interesting program and discussion. My name is Ed delighted to be collaborating with them. At the end of Rabbi Rosen's comments, you'll get to meet one of these students. Michelle will talk to you a little bit about what they're doing on campus. And Iyad Rayan, a student at Grand University and AFC's new release intern, will talk about the work we're going to be doing in the months ahead. Let me tell you a little bit about the American Friends Service Committee to help explain why we're here and how we got here. AFC is an organization rooted in clear tenets of peace, justice, and human rights. We have a long history of working in Israel and Palestine, having been invited or requested in 1948 to work with the Palestinian refugees after the war and the partition and so forth. So we've had a continuing presence in one way or another there. Currently, we have programs both in Palestine and in Israel. In Iowa, the Middle East Peace Education Project has been working to open up the conversation about U.S. policy in the region and to call for an end to U.S. military aid, which we believe is instrumental in continuing the conflict. While the U.S. government insists on a special relationship with Israel, many of us would prefer that the U.S. have a special relationship with human rights, civil rights, and international law. Seeing our government not moving in that direction, more and more civil society is turning to the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movements. This nonviolent movement is coming from inside the heart of Palestine, and it is a call to the international community to hold accountable those who are profiting from the oppressive Israeli occupation. This, then, is what leads us to this public forum with Rabbi Rosen. Rabbi Rosen is a congregational rabbi in Evanston, Illinois. He is co-founder and co-chair of the Rabbinical Council of the Jewish Voice for Peace. He's a regular blogger and author of the recently released book, Wrestling in the Debate, A Rabbi's Path to Palestine. Toward peace with justice in Israel and Palestine. One of those next steps is the active support for the interfaith Soda Stream boycott, a campaign led by Jewish Voice for Peace. Of the Soda Stream boycott, Rabbi Rosen said, I do believe it provides us with a means to take a public moral stand against the injustices Israel is committing in the occupied West Bank, and to stand in solidarity with those whose lives are impacted by this oppression. Those concerned with human rights should know that freedom for real, living, breathing human beings is what truly is at stake here. I applaud Rabbi Rosen for the journey he has taken, and I hope we see it a call for our own journey as we ask what are our next steps. Following Rabbi Rosen's comments, we will hear briefly, as I said, from Hannah and from Iyad about the work they are doing in Des Moines, and perhaps you will find in their work your next steps. Please welcome to the University and the Central Iowa community, Rabbi Rosen.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm honored to be here. I'm honored and humbled to be asked to your community, and I want to thank everyone who has made my stay here. It's been so enormously hospitable to me. I've enjoyed getting to know so many of you who are in this audience. I look forward to continuing the conversation with more of you. I honor the fact that you're here, and to open up the conversation in a wider way. And the book is really just a record of that conversation, a very critical two-year period. Critical by that I mean critical of my own life as my own relationship to Israel Palestine began to change pretty drastically. So I want to say that up front. I honor the fact that you're here. I make no assumptions that everyone here is going to agree with everything I say, but I look forward to the conversation because I think the first step toward moving toward a better place is finding the wherewithal to have this conversation. And of course, for those of you who want to continue in the next steps, the kind of activism that I'm involved in that happening as described, I'm very eager to explore that as well. But for now, I'm delighted to have the conversation. I also should mention that I am a congregational rabbi, but that doesn't mean that I speak for my congregation. I'm heartened that they support me in my work, but that doesn't mean that everyone in my congregation agrees with everything I say. Far from it. I like to describe it this way: that there's a small group of people on one end that loves everything I say on the Israel-Palestine issue, which I say more of it. There's a small group of people on the other end. Everything I say on this issue drives them absolutely crazy, which is not address these issues so publicly. And then in the middle, the large middle section is much more varied. They may agree with some things, disagree with others. They're not sure. This may not be their issue. They just assume I spoke out on other kinds of issues that were more important to them. But across the board, and this has been enormously important to me, because there was a time in which I wasn't sure whether my views would allow me to work within the Jewish community. That my congregation has supported my right as a rabbi and as a Jewish communal leader to speak my conscience on this issue. But I want to make clear up front that I was speaking for myself when I address today. I'm going to talk really, first and foremost, about my own personal journey on this issue. So then I think what we'll do is I'll do my best to end around 7:30 and then allow another 20 minutes for conversation, question and answer, and so that's right. I'm a congregational rabbi. I've been doing this work since '92. I've been in Evanston, Illinois, which is in the suburb of Chicago, since '98. And I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, Santa Monica, California. And I grew up in a strongly Jewish identified family. And Israel was always and continues to be a very central aspect of my Jewish identity. We often talk about how the Israel-Palestine conflict is not a religious conflict at heart, that it's really a political conflict. And I think that's absolutely true. I think it's important to see it that way. However, if we see it in another way, I believe that Israel and Zionism has become really a central part of the civil religion, what I call the civil religion of American Jews. Israel occupies a very primary place in Jewish identity. And there's all kinds of ways that we can understand and we can see that manifest. One very simple way is if you go to most American synagogues, at least it was this way when I was growing up, and it's still the case today. If you go into the sanctuary where you see the Aron Kodesh, the Holy Ark that contains the Torah scrolls, which is all typically Eastern Wall, we pray in that direction. You'll notice on either side of the ark, there's invariably an American flag and an Israeli flag. And that is a major statement, actually, if you think about it. We pray toward these symbols. We pray for these nationalistic symbols, which are on either side of our most sacred text. In the prayer books, all of the major Jewish denominations, Reform, Conservative, Orthodox, and Reconstructionist, which is my denomination, there is listed in there the prayer for the state of Israel, among all the other prayers. And this was a prayer that was written by the chief rabbi of Israel after Israel was founded. And it mentions in that prayer, we pray for the state of Israel, and it contains the words, the beginning of the flowering of our redemption. This is in all the major prayer books in the Jewish community. And again, if you think about that, that is a very powerful statement. Zionism and the happened in the state of Israel was largely a political act, and yet it's referred to in our liturgy as a redemptive act. And in fact, the mythic story of Israel's, the rise of Zionism and Israel's founding has a redemptive quality to it, a very powerful redemptive quality that has a strong hold on, and has had on Jews for quite a while. I certainly did on me the image of the story of this people rising out of persecutions and found the homeland of their own after being a diaspora for thousands of years. It is a mythic redemptive story that works very powerfully on us in all kinds of ways that we understand, and maybe in some ways that we don't fully comprehend. So it certainly was the center of my identity. My family grew up identifying, and still does to a great extent, with Israel. I was visited when I was very young. We had family there on my father's side. We had many friends who lived there and who immigrated there to live and who raised families there. I visited more times than I can probably count now. And I've always identified along, there's many different ways of identifying Israel, many different forms of Zionism. And for me, labor Zionism, kibbutz, liberal Zionism, liberal Zionism was really my Jewish identity. When I started to really reclaim my own sense of Jewishness on my own terms when I was in college as a graduate at UCLA, Zionism was a very significant part of that journey. And I ended up taking time off from school. I lived in Israel for 2 years. I lived on 2 different kibbutzim and very, very seriously entertained the thought of eventually moving there. I came close to joining a Garim, a group of Americans who would emigrate to help out with kibbutz. For all kinds of complicated autobiographical details that you don't need to go into. I ended up not doing that and go back to the United States and decided to become a rabbi instead. But I always knew that Israel was going to be a big part of my own sense of who I was as a Jew. And when I say I identify with liberal Zionism, that was, I identified, as I said, with kibbutz, with the peace movement in Israel. I marched in peace rallies when I lived in Israel, for Peace Now. I was very involved with, back in the States, with different kinds of organizations like Rosen Shalom, which eventually became J Street, and I believe very strongly in peace with the Palestinians and what eventually became referred to as the two-state solution. And that was the form of Zionism that I identified with. I did not deny that there were some aspects of the founding of the state of Israel that I found troubling, and that there were aspects of life, namely the occupation in particular, that was very, very painful and difficult. But liberal Zionists have really, I think, our way of dealing with that is way the word is complicated. Whenever I would start to think more deeply about this, the Zionist enterprise, and there were things that would always be these little voices that I would sort of entertain in the wee hours of the night. Some of them, one of them was this whole notion of creating a state based on one ethnic identity, one ethnic religious identity. Going into a part of the world, a land that was historically very multi-religious and multi-ethnic, and to create a state that was exclusively Jewish, well, as an American, where we believe in separation of church and state, we believe in diversity, strength of diversity, and one civic identity of being American, no matter what religion or ethnicity we were. That was always troubling. It was particularly troubling for me because in liberal Zionist circles we often talk about what's called the demographic issue. I'm sure many of you have heard this. That the argument for the two-state solution, by and large, is not a moral argument, namely that Palestinians deserve a state of their own. It was really a demographic argument. It was not democratic, but rather demographic. In other words, the birth rate was such that we needed a two-state solution so that, because eventually Palestinians, non-Jews, American character of our country, I would find that enormously offensive. But yet somehow that's okay in the case of Israel and Zionism. And because so much of Zionism was rooted in this notion of a place where Jews could find safety, but somehow finding safety based on creating an exclusively Jewish state was based on a Jewish majority, because you have to have a Jewish majority in order for the state to be quote-unquote Jewish. Those were the voices in the wee hours. I would sort of hear them, put them in a lockbox in the back of my head and say, well, it's complicated. It's complicated. And, I would think about the founding, the circumstances around the founding of the state of Israel. And in particular, when I started to read the new Israeli stories, I'm sure many of you are familiar with people like Ben Morris and Ilan Pappé and Shlaim and Barbara Kimmerly and others. When their works were translated in English in the 90s, they had a galvanizing impact in Israeli society when they started to read newly declassified military documents that really uncovered some troubling realities, that the myth that Israel wanted Palestinians to stay in their homes, but they were encouraged to flee by their countries, was in fact largely a myth. That Israel had a policy of depopulating entire villages and destroying them and not allowing them to return. That many of these people fled. That many of them, in addition, were forcibly expelled, what we would call today ethnically cleansed. And I would entertain those voices for a while, but then a lot and say, well, it's complicated, nationalism, it's a messy business. That's how our country was founded after all. And so that was sort of the way I rode vis-a-vis Israel for a while. When I became a rabbi, of course, these doubts, they carry much higher stakes, right? Because as a rabbi, it's my opinions are not just my personal opinions. I speak my conscience as a Jewish leader. And I would say I became rabbi in 92, and 93 was Oslo. And it was right after the first Intifada. Things started to go south fairly quickly. I was in great anguish about the entrenchment of the paralysis of the peace process, particularly around the second Intifada in 2000. And I can look back and say I dealt with the issue of avoidance. I really didn't talk about it all that much. And when I did, it was sort of very bland kinds of announcements about, well, we need to recommit ourselves to the two-state solution and the peace process, and once there's two states or two peoples, everything will be better. And at the same time, my resolve started to chip away. It became more and more difficult for me to hold my peace. I think in 2006, Israel's military invasion into Lebanon, the blockade on Gaza, which I found to be crushing and brutal. I actually went out and signed a communal letter of interfaith congregational leaders in Chicago, which was a pretty major step for me. But finally, the final straw for me was Operation Cast Net, Israel's military onslaught in Gaza in December 2008 and January 2009. And that was when I crossed kind of a Rubicon. And I remember very vividly, I was reading about the initial military operation, and some of you may remember, it was December 28th, 2008, and the initial reports, the first attacks happened in Gaza City largely, and hundreds of people, including civilians and children, were killed by bombs. There was a police cadet graduation ceremony going on at the time, and I was reading in the New York Times. I remember sitting on my computer reading this, and I remember feeling just, like all of my complicated voices I didn't hear anymore. And I was very anguished. I felt like as a Jew and as a rabbi, I couldn't look the other way. I couldn't apologize. I couldn't stay silent. And I should mention that I had been writing law. I started writing law in 2006. like funny YouTube videos on there, anything at all that I thought was interesting. But gradually it started to become really anything to share my thoughts on social justice issues that were concerning me. And so that night when I was reading the news reports out of Gaza, I sat down and wrote a very short and not particularly eloquent post. So I'll read that to you now. That is the post that begins the book. It's titled Outrage in Gaza, No More Apologies, December 28, 2008. The news today out of Israel and Gaza makes me just sick to my stomach. I know, I can already hear the responses. Every nation has a responsibility to ensure the safety of its citizens. If some rockets stopped, Israel would be forced to take military action. Hamas also bears responsibility for this tragic situation. I can answer each and every one of these claims in turn, but I'm ready to stop this perverse game of rhetorical ping pong. I don't buy the rationalizations anymore. I'm so tired of the apologetics. How on earth will squeezing the life out of Gaza, not to mention bombing the living hell out of it, ensure the safety of Israeli citizens? We good liberal Jews are ready to protest oppression and human rights abuses anywhere in the world, but are all too willing to give Israel a pass. It's a fascinating double standard, and one I understand all too well. I understand it because I've been just as responsible as anyone else for perpetrating it. So no more rationalizations. What Israel has been doing to the people of Gaza is an outrage. It brought neither safety nor security. It has brought neither safety nor security to the people of Israel, and has brought nothing but misery and tragedy upon the people of Gaza. There, I've said. Now what do I do? At the time, that last statement was sort of misunderstood. A lot of people thought it was a practical question, like, what do I do now? So people wrote comments, well, you should write this letter or march this rally or and really, it was a deeper question than that. It was a more existential question, really. It was, well, who am I? And what do I do? Where do I belong? I wasn't sure if there was a place for me in the Jewish community. It was just one of those moments that I wrote it, I pressed publish, and one of the so you can just was, very quickly I discovered that people just struck a nerve, and I received more comments to that post than I ever had since. Almost 200 comments. It just went viral, and people, congregants, but then just people around the world were just writing. I think the Rabbi had written something like that. I had people who were extremely angry at me. I had people who were saying, thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Mr. Rabbi. These things I've heard people say, wow, that's interesting. Say more. What do you mean by this? And it was across the board. And they kept coming and coming and coming. And they started talking to each other at certain points. And it was really, it was heartening to me that we were able to have this conversation. So I continued to write during the course of the past into January, and more and more people spoke up to the comment, of course. My congregation caused a great deal of upheaval, you may imagine, but we found a way to talk together about it. Which I talk to you further if you're interested. We had facilitators come in who help train congregants to have small group discussions where we could create safe spaces to share. To allow people, even though they had a rabbi who was maybe not the rabbi they had hired, saying these things, still my challenge was to allow people within my congregation to know that this was still their congregation and I was still their rabbi. And what it also did was, in the coming days and months, being this public, and it may not have happened if I hadn't had the blog, what I described in the book is how the dominoes fall. You know, all those voices in my lock boxes just opened them up and they all came. And it wasn't really just about Gaza. Gaza was actually causing something much larger. All those voices that I really entertained over the years, or chose not to, I entertained on my blog. On Hot's Modes, Turn that on. American Jewish community. I wrote, I'm not going to celebrate this anymore. It doesn't mean I'm not going to observe it, but I felt that it was much more appropriate to observe it not through unmitigated joy, dancing and singing on the day that is for Palestinians, the day of international dispossession, but rather a day of soul searching and conversation and even repentance. And together with some other rabbis who, thankfully, I was able to find other kindred spirits, rabbinic kindred spirits who we can stand together on these issues. We had a series of programs around the country where we invited Palestinians into our homes and allowed them to tell us their stories of their families and what was lost during Nakba when the Palestinians were put into this position. And I wrote about that. And there was another ad hoc group that started with another rabbi, Ryan Walt, who's a congregational rabbi who was in Virginia. I started a Jewish fast for Gaza, which was a solidarity initiative for the people of Gaza, calling for an end to the blockade and to military actions, beginning of engagement in a real just and lasting peace. And we started to get thousands of people to sign on for it. We had 10 rabbis, we called them Indian rabbis, who signed statements. And little by little, I began to realize that there was a place, maybe a new place to stay. And it was, and that there were Jews who were willing to stand there with me. I wrote about on my blog and had a conversation on my blog with folks over the years. And I'd like to read to you a little bit from the book now, just to give you an idea of my sort of how the arc of this journey happened. So what I want to do is read to you my ruminating 1 year later. This is the 1 year anniversary of Casa, where I think about the year that I had gone through since then. It's called Gaza 1 year later beyond complications, December 28th, 2009. It was exactly 1 year ago that I read the first news accounts of Israel's military assault in Gaza. And then I quote from the New York Times article that I had read that night. Waves of Israeli airstrikes destroyed Hamas security facilities in Gaza on Saturday in a crushing response to the group's rocket fire, killing more than 225, the highest one-day toll in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in decades. There was a shocking quality to Saturday's attacks, which began in broad daylight as police cadets were graduating, women were shopping at the Gaza market, and children were returning from school. The center of Gaza City was a scene of chaotic horror, with rubble everywhere, sirens wailing, and women shrieking as dozens of mutilated bodies were laid out on the pavement and in the lobby of Shifa Hospital, so that family members could identify them. The dead included civilians, including several construction workers, and at least 2 children in school uniforms. By afternoon, shops were shuttered, funerals began, and mourning tents were visible on nearly every major street in the densely populated city. End quote. Previously, when I hear this kind of news out of Israel Palestine, my shock and anguish would quickly be tempered by a familiar voice telling me to calm down, don't overreact, don't forget how terribly complicated the situation is. Indeed, I distinctly remember hearing that voice 3 years earlier when the IDF responded to Hezbollah rocket attacks with a similarly massive military onslaught. This time, though, it was different. This time I didn't hear the voice. Somehow, it just didn't seem all that complicated to me anymore. Ideologically speaking, I regard Zionism with great pride as the, quote, national liberation movement of the Jewish people. Of course, I didn't deny that this rebirth had come at the expense of another people. Of course, I recognized that Israel's creation was bound up to the suffering of the Palestinians. The situation was, well, it was complicated. Last year, however, I reacted differently. I read of Apache helicopters dropping hundreds of tons of bombs on 1.5 million people, crowded into a 140 square mile patch of land with nowhere to run. In the coming days, there will be about bombing of schools, whole families being blown to bits, children literally burned to bone with white phosphorus. Somehow, it didn't seem complicated at all anymore. At long last, I felt as if I were viewing the conflict with something approaching clarity. Of course, I think we all agree that the Palestinian conflict is technically complicated. But at the end of the day, there is nothing complicated about persecution. The political situation in Darfur, for instance, is enormously complicated. But these complications certainly haven't stopped scores of Jews across North America from protesting the human rights injustices being committed there. We do so because we know that underneath all the geopolitical complexities, oppression is oppression. And as Jews, we know instinctively that our sacred tradition and our own tragic history require us to speak out against all oppression committed in our midst. I suggest that if there is anything complicated for us here, it's in the possibility that we might in fact have become oppressors ourselves. That is painfully complicated. After all, our Jewish identity has been bound up with the memory of our own persecution for centuries. How on earth can we comprehend, let alone respond to the suggestion that we become our own worst nightmare? More than anything else, what I was trying to say in that English emotional blog post 1 year ago was, is this what it has come to? Have we come to the point where Israel can wipe out hundreds of people, whole families, whole neighborhoods, and our response as Jews will be to simply rationalize it away? At the very least, will we be able to stop and question what has brought us to this terrifying point? Have we become unable to recognize persecution for what it really and truly is? Those who know me or read my blog surely know that it has been a painfully challenging year for me. My own relationship to Israel is changing in ways I never could have predicted. Since I started raising questions like those above, I've lost some friends, and yes, my congregation has lost some members. But if Zionism is the unofficial religion of the contemporary Jewish community, then I'm sure there must be many who consider me something of an apostate. At the same time, I'm surprised and encouraged by a large number of people I've met who've been able to engage with these questions openly and honestly, even if they don't always agree with me. I suppose this is what I decided to do 1 year ago, to put my faith in our ability to stand down paralyzing complexities, however painful the prospect. 1 year later, I still hold tight to this faith. Now, increasingly involved with Jewish police, which has become a very important Jewish for me. Many of the rabbis who I collaborated with in these other ad hoc projects help come together to form the Rabbinical Council of the Jewish Voice for Peace, which is now numbers 41 of us. I think I know for a fact there are many, many more who would like to join, but don't feel safe to be affiliated with an organization that's calling for equal rights and human rights for all who belong on the land. Jewish Voice for Peace, I consider to be one of the most courageous and important Jewish organizations in our community. Is still considered by the Jewish establishment to be, or targeted by the Jewish establishment as a far left extremist group. But if you go to the JVP website and read the mission statement, I defy anyone to tell me that what they're reading there is extremist. It's calling for human rights, it's calling for democracy, it's calling for civil rights and equal rights, all kinds of values that we as Americans cherish. And I think it's a very important voice that is attracting members, especially young members, very quickly. And that was a major turning point. I just got back last week from the National Members Meeting in the Bay Area, and it was truly exciting. It was a new kind of coalition, Jews, non-Jews, coming together out of certainly a Jewish organizational context, but very much focused on grassroots organizing. It's a membership organization that seeks to promote a different form of Jewish institution, one that is accountable to people and build popular support. One of the things that JVP is involved in, as Kathleen mentioned, is giving support to various forms of divestment initiatives. BDS is something that I wrote about in 2009 that I said, trust me, you're hearing a lot about BDS in the coming years, and has become a flashpoint of the Jewish community. I want to end by just reading to you the blog post from 2009, or part of it, because I know that this is an important part of the work that JVP collaborates with AFSC on. I think there's a great deal of misinformation about what BDS is and what it isn't. I think it's targeted by the Jewish institutional establishment as anti-Semitic, often an anti-Semitic movement that unfairly singles out Israel and legitimizes Israel. their statements. So the first, this was written by Thomas Friedman in 2002 in the New York Times. How is it that Egypt imprisoned the leading democracy advocate in the Arab world after a phony trial, and not a single student group in America calls for divestiture of Egypt? I'm not calling for it. The silence is telling. How is it that Syria occupies Lebanon for 25 years, choked life out of its democracy, and not a single student group calls for divestment from Syria? How is it that Saudi Arabia denies its women the most basic human rights and bans any other religion from being practiced publicly on its soil, and not a single student group calls for divestiture from Saudi Arabia? Criticizing Israel is not anti-Semitic, and saying so is vile. But singling out Israel for opprobrium and international sanction of all proportion to any other party in the Middle East is anti-Semitic, and not saying so is dishonest. Now, in Dershowitz, around the same time, wrote this, and he was also on campus at us. The divestment campaign applies to Israel and Israel alone. I'm sure will continue to deal with companies that supply Iran, Saudi Arabia, China, Cuba, North Korea, Zimbabwe, Libya, Syria, Sudan, Belarus, and other brutal dictatorships around the world that routinely murder civilians, torture and imprison dissenters, deny educational opportunities to women, imprison gays, and repress speech. Indeed, any of those who support divestiture against Israel actively support these repressive regimes. This divestment campaign has absolutely nothing to do with human rights. It is motivated purely by hatred for the Jewish state. Absolutely. For free speech. So I'm going to just read to you my response to their points. Friedman and Dershowitz do a compelling job of spelling out just how deeply painful and divisive these hot buttons are for us. I must admit I have serious hesitation in taking on an issue that pushes so many of my own Jewish fear buttons. I'm not unmindful of the tragic historic specters that boycotts against Jews and Jewish institutions conjure up for us. Still in all, I can't help but wonder whether by dismissing BDS as simple abject hatred of Jews in Israel, we are misunderstanding the essential point of this movement. Even more fundamentally, I wonder if our rejection of BDS simply papers over our inability to face more troubling aspects of the Jewish state. I'll start here. In a way, Dershowitz is correct when he writes that BDS has, quote, nothing to do with human rights. This particular movement did not, in fact, arise out of international community's concern over human rights in Israel and Palestine. It was founded in 2005 by a coalition of Palestinian groups who sought to fight for self-determination through nonviolent direct action. It arose out of their frustration over Israel's continued refusal to comply with international law on any number of critical issues, and the oppressive manner in which Israel has occupied and ruled over Palestinians. In other words, it is absolutely true that BDS is not an international human rights campaign. It is rather a liberation campaign waged by the Palestinian people, one for which they are seeking international support. Yes, there are many oppressive nations around the world, and if a call came from indigenous grassroots movements in those nations calling for international support of BDS to support their struggle, I'd say most of us would seriously consider lending them our support. To use a partial list of nations mentioned by Friedman and Dershowitz, if any constituencies of the oppressed in Egypt, Syria, Saudi Arabia, Libya, Zimbabwe, or Belarus called for nonviolent global boycott, divestment, and sanction campaigns to force change in their country's policies, yes, I think we might well agree that they were worthy of our backing. However, the absence of such movements does not necessarily negate the justice of the Palestinians' current campaign. And it doesn't seem to me that the support of their call automatically constitutes hatred of Israel or Jews. What I think Friedman and Dershowitz, and so many of us, fail to grasp is this. Even as we recoil from nations that, quote, choke the life out of their democracies and routinely murder civilians, torture, imprison dissenters, etc., the only way we can truly address this kind of oppression is to support the people who struggle for rights within those countries themselves. It is not for us Westerners to determine what is best for them. And I particularly fear that when we frame this as, quote, a fight for democracy, as Friedman does, this is really just a code for, quote, imposing Western influence. But perhaps that is just a discussion for another day. The bottom line, although I believe there are undoubtedly those out there who will support BDS out of hatred, pure and simple, I think it is just too easy to dismiss this movement as ipso facto anti-Semitic. For so many painful reasons, it's just so hard for us to see Israel as an oppressor. That to admit that despite all the vulnerability we feel as Jews, the power dynamic is dramatically, overwhelmingly weighted in Israel's favor. Although a movement like BDS might feel on a visceral level like just one more example of the world piling on the Jews in Israel, we need to be open to the possibility that it might more accurately be described as the product of a weaker, dispossessed, disempowered people doing what it must to resist oppression. I have to say, it feels like I'm going out on a serious limb by writing these words. I'm only raising these issues, as always, in the hope of starting a wider discussion in the Jewish community. Somehow, I feel it is only by facing the stuff we prefer not to have to face that we might begin to find a way out of this painful reality. And since that time, that was 2009, and that was sort of my tentative foray into this discussion. I come to believe that BDS is an enormously important movement. I believe that it is a call from Palestinians to support. The real question we need to be asking is not what about this country, that country, this country. The real question is, are we going to answer it or not? That's the real question. And we need to answer that question very seriously. And we do believe the call is valid, that their oppression is real, and that calling for a popular support of a nonviolent resistance, which is a time-honored way that oppressed peoples have resisted far more powerful parties, as in the Montgomery bus boycotts of the civil rights movement, or as in South Africa. I think it's important for us to take this seriously, even if there are those in my community who aren't ready to publicly sign on, at the very least, not to condemn it irrationally as Jew hatred, which I firmly believe is not. Can we argue about its effectiveness? Absolutely. But to shun all possible consideration of it, I think, is narrow-minded and short-sighted. And I have no trouble signing on to any number of campaigns, boycott, divestment campaigns. So I'm going to stop there. There's much more to say, but I want to leave some time. I already gone over my promised time, so I do want to allow an opportunity for conversation. And I wait for announcements at the end as well. Thank you for having me.
Is a two-state solution still possible?
I don't believe it is, at least not the way that it's been. The question was, is a two-state solution still possible? I don't believe it is in the way that it's been defined in the last 20 years by peace process. If you go to the West Bank and you see the reality on the ground, it's clear to me, and I've done this numerous times, and I've brought congregants there as well, and when you see it, you really understand that Israel has been engaged in a very concerted policy. The West Bank was divided into 3 sections during Oslo, areas A, B, and C. Area A was ostensibly under Palestinian autonomy, both for civil authority and security. Area B was Palestinian civil authority and Israeli security. Area C is under Israeli control. And Area C is the largest part of it. It is about 60% of the West Bank. It includes all of the so-called major Jewish settlement blocks. And we have seen over the 20 years, I have no doubt in my mind what's going on. Israel has been systematically demolishing Palestinian homes in Area C, evicting them, moving them into areas A and B, and also in Jerusalem, revoking property rights, citizenship rights. They've been slowly but surely Judaizing Area C and de facto annexing it, which I believe is part of the plan. In fact, there are partners in the current coalition that outwardly say that annexing Area C is part of their political program. And I think, for all intents and purposes, that's what's happened. If you look at the West Bank, there's no way that you could imagine a contiguous, viable Palestinian state with what Israel has done. They've moved Palestinians into areas And so, I think if you look at the reality on the ground, we have Swiss cheese. We have, disconnected, imprisoned areas that the majority of Palestinians live. We have concerted effort to move Jews and to move Palestinians out of the largest part of the West Bank. To continue to pretend that this is a peace process, I think is absurd. And so I don't think that a two-state solution under the parameters that were set by Oslo, which I think have only ended up in formalizing an equitable situation on the ground will arrive at a valid two-state solution.
On the agenda of Jewish Voice for Peace, where is AIPAC and its inordinate negative influence on Congress and its one-sided legislation in favor of Israel?
Well, JVP has a different approach than AIPAC. We are a grassroots, we have a grassroots approach. We don't look to the political process to leverage power because right now when you have the United States, where there's such a strong Israel lobby, and you have the United States that has such a special relationship, as Kathleen said, with the state of Israel, we're talking about apples and oranges. We do protest when we feel that there are certain bills being brought up in Congress that are supported by AIPAC that we feel are unjust and inequitable and counter the cause of real peace. But we're also different from J Street in that we're not involved directly in lobbying members of Congress. We don't look to, right now, we look to shift the discussion so that we can move the political powers in a direction, but not working through the political system for recourse.
If you're not hopeful of a two-state solution, what would a one-state solution look like? And the second part is, how would the Palestinian issues be resolved?
Did everybody get the question? If I don't believe in a two-state solution, how would one-state solution be possible, and how would we resolve issues with Palestinians in such a scenario? We're only hearing the tentative beginnings of a discussion of alternatives to two-state solution that has its current envisioned. I don't pretend to have a policy, an end game in mind, although there are many, I think, creative solutions that are starting to be bandied about in political circles. I participated a year and a half ago at a symposium on a one-state solution at Harvard, and I have to say, when I went there, I mentioned this to some of you, when I went there to the airport, I was heading into the airport, I really was like, that was one of those moments where I was, my God, what am I getting myself into here? I wasn't sure if I was just going to a place where it was going to be, this sort of, it was again my Jewish fear, what I call my Jewish lizard brain, of saying I'm just going to hear a lot of, people chanting for Jews to be going into the sea and the destruction of Jewish states, et cetera, was I go to the dark side. And what I found when I got there was this amazing, creative, inspiring symposium. There were Jews and Christians and academics and Palestinians and Israelis really coming up with some just interesting new ideas, confederations, federated systems, republics, ways of ensuring that there's cultural autonomy for all peoples who live there, including Jews. One of the organizers of it, a Palestinian man named Ahmed Moore, who's just a remarkable young man, ended the symposium saying thank you so much for all coming together to help talk about a way that we can ensure a viable future for all people of this land, the kind of future that they deserve. And, right now we're at the very nascent beginnings of such a conversation. All I can say is, whatever it looks like, it has to involve equal rights, guaranteed equal rights for everybody who lives on that land, regardless of their religion or ethnicity or national origin. It has to involve, national cultural autonomy for all of them. what that will look like will be at the beginning of that kind of conversation. It's happening in academic circles, it's happening in some activist circles, it's not obviously happening in political circles quite yet, but I'm old enough to remember when the two-state solution, so-called, which is now the sort of the mantra of the establishment, the political establishment. I remember back in the 70s and early 80s when talking to PLO and talking about a two-state solution was like, you did not go there. That was a sure way to get thrown out of the Jewish community. So I know things change. I know realities on the ground and political developments have a way of shifting the discussion. And my prediction is that once the pattern reality of what's on the ground now will prove the depth of the peace process that's currently envisioned, we're going to start to hear greater calls for public calls for new ways of thinking, new ways out. Yes.
You say that your internal voice that told you it's complicated has disappeared. Maybe you should reconsider that, though. You're glossing over the violence perpetrated against Israeli civilians, targeting Israeli civilians in this presentation, while focusing on Israel's operations like in Kasled, where they're not targeting civilians, they're targeting militants. So you have that aspect of it. Then you're not, I imagine you're not completely ignoring the situation in a country like Syria, where more people have been killed by the government in the last couple of years than Palestinians have been killed in the entire span of the last 60 years. So how do you...
Right, no, that's an excellent question. I think there are two differences. One is that our country, my country, doesn't have a special relationship with the government of Syria that arms it and enables it and looks the other way when it happens. And the other is that as a Jew, I'm implicated, as an American, doubly implicated, because as a Jew, I'm implicated in what goes on in Israel. So, of course, we need to speak out, and I do. Human rights is a huge part of my work. But the reason I'm spending so much time on this particular issue is because I'm realizing that our community has been egregiously silent, and we hide behind arguments of, well, what about here, what about there, and to me that's misdirection. That's not the real question to be asking, in my opinion. The real question is, well, why is silence, not only silent, why do we enable this situation? In the case of violent Palestinians, there's different ways to answer that. But the general, my overriding context for understanding this issue is that Israel was founded through a dislocation and a disenfranchisement of the people who live in that land. And Israel's security since that time has been predicated on keeping the Jewish majority in that land, people who were sent out of that land, but also keeping down the people who remain and oppressing them like that. And one of the things you find that when people are oppressed, they tend to resist, and sometimes violently. But you have to look at the power. You have to look at the history of the power dynamic. The power dynamic is unbelievably weighted in Israel's favor. I don't condone violent resistance, but I understand. I understand that people who are put down long enough will eventually fight back. Sometimes they will resist non-violently, which has been happening since before Israel was founded by Palestinians up until today. It's very oppressed. And there is also violent resistance. In the case of Gaza, it's very interesting. Gaza, what's the history of Gaza? Gaza was never a majorly populated area until after 1948. And that was when so many of the refugees were crammed in there from other parts of the country. And almost immediately, there were incursions out of Gaza, violent incursions, people trying to go back to their lands, Fedayeen raids. It didn't begin with Hamas and Kasled. It had been going on much earlier. And And that will not break their resolve. It won't end in misery, and it will only end up in greater destruction and greater militancy in the long run. And then finally, you have to look at the casualties. I mean, yes, there were very crude bombs sent out of Gaza into civilian areas. Palestinians don't have the kind of pinpoint, you know, smart bombs that the United States and Israel has. But you have to look at the casualty rate. You have to look at the disproportionate number of people who were killed on one side. And it's so overwhelmingly disproportionate. When you look at the number of Israelis killed in Castlet, for instance, we'll use that as an example, versus the number of Palestinians, the overwhelming number of Palestinians. I also I question whether or not we can be so sanguine about Israel using all of its efforts to avoid civilian casualties. I mean, you drop literally hundreds of tons of bombs in a tiny patch of land, you know, full of civilian casualties. You drop like phosphorus on school areas, you know the wind will take it, and there will be civilian casualties. So I think that's something we in the Jewish community often like to point to as well. They try to use it, we don't. But I don't know that is an honest equation.
I'm not really fully understanding why you're supporting one side when you're talking about the casualties on the other. Like, what about the Israelites that had to build a playground that was a bomb shelter so students could actually play outside? What about like 2 bomb shelters being on each and every block? I just think you're focusing mainly on one side and ignoring the fact that Israelites are going through the same thing. I mean, rockets are coming all the time and children are just used to not being outside. I think it's really impossible for us to sit here and talk about it when we don't live there and have absolutely no idea what it's like to be attacked by rockets every single day.
So I appreciate the point. I don't accept the argument that we can't speak out on anything that's going on in any part of the world because we don't live there, because then there would be no such thing as human rights. I think citizens of the world, especially as a Jew who is implicated by the Jewish state, right, this is being done by your name, I think I have not only the right to do it, but the responsibility to do it. So I think if we waited only to speak out things that are happening in our own backyard, there would be no such thing as human rights in the world. And I'm sure if you thought about it long enough, you could think of issues around the world that you'd spoken strongly on as well. I totally understand the fear that Israelis and Israeli families and Israeli children have living with bomb shelters and living under that kind of fear. But one of the things I think that I have to realize is that we have to reckon with the power that Israel, I don't believe I'm taking sides. I believe that the long-term security of Israel will not be ensured by going in militarily the way it does into Palestinian areas and bombing them with such incredible ferocity. I don't believe that's ultimately will ensure the well-being of the security. Israel certainly has since the birth of the state. Israel is a garrison state. Israel was born as a very, very militarized country and has become increasingly militarized as it has to be. Like it needs greater and greater military power to rule over the people that it is turned into refugees or it is ruling over militarily. So that's an important part of the equation. It's not a level playing field. I have plenty of friends who, in Israel who have to live with that fear every day. But I think we need to reckon with where will ultimate security come from? Will it come from just greater and greater military firepower, or will it come through diplomatic engagement and realizing that granting freedom to people, granting equal rights to people, will probably be a better way to ensure a future in which people won't persist.
Do you think the
be any process where the Palestinians can understand the fear that the Jews have because of their history, or that the Israelis can understand the Palestinian situation as it really happened.
That's already ongoing. There are many vertical reconciliation projects going on in Israel-Palestine. The Bereaved Family Forum is a great example of that. Seeds of Peace is a great example of that. The Shalom is a great example of that. There are lots of formal and informal coexistence projects, reconciliation projects. Excuse me. And I applaud them. I think it's important to have them. I think that we also need to realize, though, that when, well, let me put it this way. I'm very involved in a coexistence project that's based in Chicago called Hands of Peace. And we bring Palestinian and Israeli high school students together, American high school students, for a 2-week period doing conflict resolution and team building and learning together and hearing each other's stories. And it's bringing them to synagogue, bringing them to a mosque, bringing them to a church. And it is remarkable. It's an inspiring project. And those kinds of projects, I believe, are very important. However, I think there's a however to it, which is that they still occur as long as there's an unequal, unjust infrastructural situation. I don't know what the ultimate shelf life of these kinds of projects will be. The Palestinian and Israelis across one another in a sort of rarefied world in Chicago can come to an understanding. But when they go back to Israel-Palestine, that Israeli will eventually have an F-16 and be likely standing at checkpoints, and the Palestinian won't have to go through, and so they'll be in an inherently inequitable situation. So I think we need to realize that these projects are important, but the ultimate goal is not only human connection, but institutional, to dismantle the institution of racism that is that's so ingrained. And until that happens, I don't know that it's not clear. There have been lots of studies done about the long-term effects of these coexistence projects, and the jury is still out on them. I think they're worthy of our support. I think they give us rays of hope. But we also have to bear in mind, in my opinion, that they exist within a large structure that needs to be addressed for true reconciliation. Yes.
Sir, I'd like to mention that I think many of us appreciate your courage in standing up for what you're leading. My question has to do with the geopolitical issues. Israel, the American government is providing Israel with a tremendous amount of money. It's presumed that the American government and it is believed by the government that Israel provides stability in the Middle East. Would you elaborate on that issue? Is that what's going on? How is that issue?
Yeah, I'll read the question. The question was, our government gives a great deal of money and support to Israel through the belief that Israel provides stability in the Middle East. I don't believe, I think Israel, for many Middle East, is a festering sword that doesn't create stability. I think it's as long as it's in a situation that as long as it's unresolved and that this oppression and occupation is further entrenched, the more unstable it will become. And so, if you're asking me my opinion of that, I think that it's short-sighted to simply support the status quo because we think that's the route to stability. I think that it is a situation that needs to be addressed through diplomacy, real diplomacy. If there's going to be any real long-term stability, I fear, quite frankly, for what will happen if the status quo is allowed to languish. And I think maybe I have time for one more. One question, and then we'll finish up. Yes, Matt, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was wondering, does the United States government provide equal weapons to both sides?
The answer to that is no. But maybe I have time for that. Yes. No, only questions. That was the rules. I'm sorry. No, okay.
you say you go back to Oslo. Well, I go back to the creation of Palestine and Israel, and I remember what the king of Saudi Arabia said with the creation of Israel. And I was wondering if you do. And that is the etiology of the problem to be totally ignored. He said we will never accept the creation of the state of Israel, and haven't to this day.
They in Saudi Arabia?
Saudi Arabia. And
what do you think of the Saudi Arabian peace plan that's moving forward? You don't think much of it?
no, I don't
Don't know that.
I don't know. But that attitude has infiltrated Hamas, Hezbollah, and your other RAF and the Yasser Arafat, PLO. And, you know, until you recognize that, you have people that will never accept the creation of Israel. You know, and you have a fact that into your thinking that doesn't appear to me.
No, I don't factor that into my thinking because I don't believe it to be true. I think Israel has, Israel is a reality. I think most around the world will realize that Israel is a very strong country that is not going anywhere. I think, to fall back on this attitude that no one will ever accept Israel is in a way that it's, to me, that feels like a victim mentality. I think Israel has overwhelmingly proven its strength and its ability to remain viable. I think the question is not Israel's existence. I think it's how will Israel exist? How will Israel exist going forward? Will it exist as a place that's literally increasingly imprisoning Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza? And does it think it can honestly continue to do that with impunity? So it's not, all of the discussion about Israel's right to exist, to me, there's no other nation that thinks more about getting world approval for existence. And the longer we harp on that, the more we, I think, ingrain into the victim mentality. I think Israel exists. The question is not will it exist or how can it exist, but how will it exist? What are the values which it will exist by? And that's the discussion that I'm hoping to have. Thank you for having a conversation with me tonight.
Hello everyone, my name is Ziad from Palestine.
Hi, I'm Hannah Chow.
Thank you all for being here. I appreciate that and I appreciate all the questions. And in case you have more questions for the Rabbi, he will be outside after this for a session, so you can visit with him and ask him more. Thank you. And you can buy his book. It's outside for sale. And we have refreshments and snacks for you guys to
Well, my name is Hannah Chow. I'm a junior here at Drake University, and I, along with my good friend Aditi Jafari, co-founded the Middle East Peace and Prosperity Alliance, or more affectionately known as MEPA. We are a new student organization here at Drake this semester, and we have three main goals. The first one is to further educate the students and surrounding community about various cultures,
SodaStream is a product made in supposedly Israel, but it's actually made on settlements in the West Bank. And the settlements are compounds, residential compounds, which are made on the West Bank, on on sea areas, as Rabbi has explained earlier. So it's actually a part of the Palestinian land. Moreover, it's supposed to be an environmentally friendly product that helps us not waste so much plastic. As a matter of fact, they dump their waste in the Palestinian territory, so there's nothing environmentally friendly about this. So the cause is defeated by their own actions. Um, so the event that we'll have with the FNC will be on May 6th. We'll have a social stream a meeting. It will be in Mars Cafe, which is really close to here, May 6th. And May 15th, we will have International Solidarity Activists in the FSC office. Also, on May 20th, we will have our regular meeting for the Middle East Education Project. Also, if you actually support after that, I know that I did not give you much of a description about the stream, but if you support boycotting the stream, about boycotting really not mean having war over this product or having war over the stores that sell this product, but actually helping by not using this product because it hurts so many Palestinians. And it defeats its own goal, as I mentioned earlier. So please sign the petition outside. You will find laptops outside that you can sign the petition for that. And we will also have, with the Jewish Voice for Peace, a conference in New York in August that the students can sign up for and join for 1 week about the BDS and how to build a group on campus that the AFSC will co-sponsor as well. And I welcome you for the reception, and I hope you have a really eventful week. Thank you for coming.
I'm going to make one more announcement that I got to make. On Wednesday morning at the there will be a demonstration calling for no drones in Iowa. And that evening, Wednesday evening at AIB,
That protest is at 11 o'clock Wednesday at the
we're
airport.
educated on what the drones campaign is all about.
It's at the protest is at 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock on Wednesday morning.
That's good.
Yeah.
So how are those kids? They're coming tomorrow. Oh, really?
Oh.
Well, I have a 3, a 2, and 6, all boys.
I'm going to make my way out of here. And I'll keep the stream live for a little while. Go ahead. My great niece turned 2 a couple weeks ago, so yeah, that's going to be an interesting age for her.
Yeah. What did you say? You have I have 3 all together. Yeah. And they're like one is 6 months. Oh, okay. A baby. Yeah, and then 4 in November. Okay. Yeah.
This is going live up on the internet, on the Ustream.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Who's that? Oh. Have you seen Fanny? I remember Fanny. She's doing pretty good. Yeah.
I don't know. You can have it. I don't.
Yeah, I would
You
love
can go
to.
in there at any time.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know.
Walaikum salam.
Alaikum salam.
I,
You use the thing very well.
yeah,
I'm like, man,
yeah, this is going up on my Ustream channel. It's a ustream.tv/channel/occupier KLN.
Okay.
And so I'm going to keep live for a little while longer. Here are computers set up for people to sign an online petition. I'll get a close-up of.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I'm live streaming, so she is going to.
Did you want to sign on it?
No, not yet. Not yet. I'm still streaming. I'm just catching a little bit of action.
Want to sign a petition?
That's going all over Facebook too. People are, I've known about this SodaStream boycott. Unfortunately, my nephew owns one.
Okay.
So, at least it's like SodaStream is
It's a soda making product. I'm just gonna get hello. Get rid of my cup.
Israelis authorizing Palestinians, so they just keep moving out there.
Yeah, the elevator's right there.
I captured this live. It's broadcast live to my live stream channel on Ustream. So I'm just gonna keep it going just to catch a little post-lecture action.
So that's like 4 in the morning?
There are more people over here signing the online petition.
Yes.
Are you interested in signing the boycott?
I will eventually, but I'm just keeping my stream going for a little while longer. This is the book that he wrote. Rescued in the Daylight.
Oh, thank you.
Rabbi's Guide Path to Palestinian Solidarity by Grant Rosen.
And I would like to get more.
Great.
There, I just picked one up, got a close-up of it for my live stream.
I'm sorry, did I
Oh no, I
your
was
picture?
no, it's fine. I was putting it back on anyway. So
So they're, I think, 21. And
Okay.
you make it out to AFSC.
I was that. Yeah.
TON?
I'm live streaming, so I'm keeping the signal going for a little while.
The one in the green.
Some more. A few over there talking. Yeah. Yeah, he said refreshments, so.
Thanks for helping with that.
You're welcome.
I got in, Jeff. Were you there? That's down when everybody's getting their food.
Oh, that was good. It was good. There's someone coming back. Some come in front.
Okay. Possibility? Yeah. Why don't I email you?
And Iyad.
IYY.
Good. Can I introduce you to him?
see if he's still here.
Yeah.
I would love to.
Hello.
Who is this?
Kaylin.
Nice to meet you.
Occupy Des Moines. Yeah, Occupy Des Moines, yeah.
Well, keep up good work.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think so. And there were a couple people that were taking pictures that night.
Haven't heard from
Right here is a sign-up sheet that people have been signing their names on, but this one is blank, and people were signing it to get on a mailing list to get more information about future events and news about the Israeli-Palestinian situation. Oh, it's wet.
Help yourself. These are for people.
Yeah, he's just knocking out a bunch of them. I decided to get me a drink. Someone else, a couple more people signing down my petition to boycott Soda Stream. Those that do not know what Soda Stream is a soda making product that you use in a home. It's a system of carbonating water with a machine that you put syrup and water in, and you can use bottles that are refillable, or you can put in another container that fits under it when you dispense it, and you just put the syrups and other accessories. So that's what the Soda Stream is, and as it said, it was made in occupied Palestine, and it is not as environmentally friendly as they claim it to be.
Still going.
Yep. I'm gonna keep it going for a little while longer. You wanna say a little something, comment, or you don't have to.
I'm just impressed. Very thoughtful presentation.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. When I heard about this from one of my fellow occupiers, I said, okay, I am so.
I'm David.
I'm Kaylin.
You were at Occupy.
Yeah.
I gave you a ride in my car to Thanksgiving dinner, Kaylin.
Yeah. That was a good gig. And, we may not occupy a physical space, but we're still, we're going to take part in the drone protest on Wednesday.
What's the protest on Wednesday?
It's an anti-drone protest at the airport.
Oh yeah, good.
At 11 o'clock at the National Guard area, and then on the 11th we're doing Bank of America protest at Ingersoll location where we've hit on before. And so that's the National Day of Action against Bank of America because they have not paid their corporate taxes like a good corporate citizen should. That's among the corporations that don't pay their fair share. And then, of course,
what is your device?
This is a Samsung Galaxy Tab.
Very cool.
And on the 25th is the National Day of Action March Against Monsanto.
Okay.
And that's at 1 o'clock at the Capitol. The Wednesday, May 8th action at the Bank of America is at 4 o'clock. Remember, I don't catch
yes,
men.
yes, I know. Yes, I know.
That's okay, it's okay, you know, you're human, just like me.
So how are you?
Oh, pretty good. I'm still doing the activist thing.
Are you doing Occupy? Is
Yeah.
Occupy still around?
Oh yeah, we don't have a physical space that we occupy, but we just do stuff.
So, but I don't know any. You didn't know who is
Yeah.
Occupy.
Yeah. But you know, we're kind of scattered around. Some have moved on to other places. Some have, you know, a few more have gotten jobs since Occupy began, which is good news. I'm still unemployed, but you know, it frees me to do this. You know, I've been doing a lot more live streaming of actions, whether it's you know, Occupy or not. You know, if there's something local that I can get to and available, I'll go do it. I'll go stream it. And yeah, I'm gonna go to the drone protest on Wednesday. I knocked out some signs, and forget the rain. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna do it. I don't care.
I gotta give this to the rabbi.
Yeah, he's over there.
I'm not gonna get a book, but I'm gonna give this to the rabbi. The house show pins. Well, they're in here. You can't see them, but they're. Oh, there they are. Yeah. House-shows. They're made from a fighter jet, a war jet. He likes them. We gave him one, and he wants them. Well, I'll give them to you another time. I gotta give these to him. But I'll give them to you another time. Yeah. Oh yeah. It was made from a fighter jet, an F-35 fighter jet.
Tú sabes de la Biblia cuando dice va a construir las armas para ganar.
Like in the Bible. In the Bible. They
In La Biblia?
swords into plowshares in Isaiah. And see, look, and then you wear it. You know, you can wear it right in here. It's a plowshare. Yeah.
That's cute.
Yeah. Como Isaiah in the Bible.
In La Biblia.
Yeah, Biblia. Yeah. Biblioteca? No.
No, Biblia.
No, Biblia is a book.
Yeah, Biblioteca is a Bible. I think we're going to have to work. He's going to have to work on the Spanish. Tienes que estudiar más. Muy triste.
Good to see you. I heard he's retiring. Yeah. I still got back.
What did you think? Did you get the stream?
Oh yeah. In fact, I'm still live.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Have you signed the petition yet?
Not yet, but I've gotten video of people doing it. Yeah, I will do it.
Exactly, yeah, right.
After I steal a cookie.
Yes. There's a trash can right over there, or I can just take it for you.
I just stole a cookie. I don't think they'll mind.
You don't have to do it.
I can let you on my glasses, they're thick. Get your face right up to it.
Good.
I'm not going to get over there a number of times.
Oh, I gotta shut down because my battery indicator's telling me I got very little juice left, so I'm gonna sign off. I thank you for watching, and see you on the stream.